Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Mind Your Nest. I'm your host, Jennifer Rosen, and I have another Midwesterner in studio today, which, I just love the Midwest and the people from the Midwest, and I'm so grateful for my guest. So I'm going to introduce her, then I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory on who she is, where she comes from, all that, and then I'm going to let her take control for a little bit. Okay, so in the hot seat today is Hope Firsel, another Midwesterner. However, she really hails from Michigan, but was in the North Shore of Chicago, Highland Park, for a very long time with her children and really being part of the community and raising her children. She moved to Boca Raton about a year and a half ago, and we recently met at a group called FACP, which is, will you tell me exactly the words for the acronym? Florida Association of Collaborative Professionals.
Collaborative.
Oh,
yes,
I did it all by myself. So I recently joined that group and met Hope, and then Hope and I had lunch this week, and she's just adorable. So, of course, I have to have her on as a guest. Aww. So here's a little blip about her, and then you're going to just carry on.
Thank you.
So Hope is a dynamic coach, consultant, and certified divorce specialist with over 15 years of experience guiding women through life's most unexpected challenges. And one other part I wanted to read about you, and then I wanted you to take control over that, is very important that your personal journey overcoming cancer, infertility, and divorce deepens Hope's empathy and amplifies her commitment to helping others rise, which I just love how simple and honest and clear your vision in those two paragraphs are. I mean, there were a lot of other words in that. This is from your LinkedIn profile, but that says it all. You've had your own trauma and pain and suffering, which you've used as fuel in how you want to help other people. So, Hope, hi. How are you?
Well, I'm wonderful. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here.
And to have a new friend.
I know.
A new Midwestern friend in Boca.
That's
I
right.
love it.
So the first thing, that a lot of people do, or being from the Midwest and growing up in a primarily Jewish environment, is doing a little bit of Jewish geography and looking on, I guess now, everybody's profiles to be like, oh my God, we have 100 mutual friends, or we know 100 of the same people, or whatever. And that's kind of like the incredible oomph that I believe really adds value to relationships.
That connection.
Yeah, completely. And how do you know this person? And I don't feel that it's in an unnatural way. I'm not looking to fish for information.
Yeah.
It's just like, how do you know this person? How do you know them? And obviously we had a few private moments about a few of our shared connections, which is always fun. So, all right, Hope, so tell me about you. Where'd you come from? How you went from Michigan to Chicago and then Boca, and whatever you want to share about your journey.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, so I am from Michigan, and we were raised outside Detroit.
Okay, in what suburb?
In West Bloomfield.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Bloomfield Hills Schools.
Yes.
And now my family's in Birmingham.
Okay, what's that bagel place, Ingerman's?
Yes.
My brother went to Michigan, so I mean, that's all I had to hear about for 4 years. It was a little much.
We were a big Go Blue in my house.
I'm sure.
And it was a beautiful childhood, and I grew up on a little lake called Walnut Lake, and it was just really peaceful and beautiful. And although I got into the University of Michigan, I was ready at 18 to try something new, having been brought up going to the big house for the football games and such. So I went to the University of Wisconsin and loved it and studied psychology and minored in women's studies. I took a year after that working in San Francisco, and then the following year I went to London, the London School of Economics, where I studied organizational behavior. And for me, it was a deep expertise in leadership development within the corporate space and business space, organizational culture, understanding how I can take my love of the human psychology and how does that fit within the workplace. And it was an incredible opportunity because the classroom, there was only 100 in this master's program. It was about a year. And I think there was less than 10 Americans. So we were studying and learning about organizational culture from a global perspective.
That's very interesting.
And it was really timely, too. It was 1999. Everyone's talking about how do we expand and how do we bring in globalization to the United States. So mergers and acquisitions and a lot of startups. And so I went into corporate America as a consultant. I never went in-house. And that's what brought me to Chicago right after graduate school. I went to Hewitt Associates.
I've heard of them.
In Lincolnshire.
Yes, big campus.
Yes. It's now Aon.
Yes. The red. I think their logo is red, I believe.
Yeah.
For some reason, like many years ago, I feel like I had an interview for them downtown in the city.
Oh, yeah. For Aon or Hewitt?
For Aon, yeah.
It was servicing so many big Fortune 500 Midwestern companies and global. I mean, I traveled the world with that company, but definitely we had some really good locals in our backyard as well, Abbott and United. And
Yeah.
it was a really great experience right out of graduate school. And
I
then
would imagine.
you are so buttoned up and you learn how to work with clients on a very top tier level. And you just don't get that in the books.
I have read my share of books in whatever category you want to describe, whether it's self-help, whether it was, and this was just for part of my French, shits and giggles when I got pregnant, reading The Girlfriend's Guide to Pregnancy, and I didn't read it cover to cover, but there were definitely some hilarious nuances that I just giggled through. I do believe in personal connection, that really supersedes, for me personally, my experience, anything you can grab off the pages in a book. Because it's, whether it's texting or writing, sometimes you can put your own personal flair into it and your intonations and your tonality and all those things. Sometimes it's just for the masses. When it really doesn't either align with you or you don't know how to take what you just read. Number one, do you really understand what you just read? Do you need a translator to say, okay, what does this mean? Can you talk to me at 5 years old? But for a lot of people, those books have really helped them propel either their personal life, their professional, or everything in between. So I'm not saying that there's no value, but you take what you want and you leave the rest.
Yeah. So if you're in like a classroom with people from all over the country, you're experiencing how their culture is impacting, right?
Yeah.
Versus just reading about it. And then being a consultant and dropping into these different companies for 6 months, a year, giving different advice. And you get to experience what it's like in real life.
How did you create your own schedule for those assignments when you would go in for a certain period of time, or like that contractual time frame for you?
Yeah, I mean, that would always be a very big part of the account manager's role, and really specifically outlining what are the responsibilities, what are the timelines, what are the deliverables. And it's very interesting because it's all skill sets that I use now as a divorce coach, and really almost like a project manager, account manager, helping my client, who is the divorcee, manage the deliverables and expectations with her lawyer, with her financial planner, with her ex. And so it's using a lot of those skills and then taking my love of psychology in terms of how do we create mindfulness and how does that leader, whoever's leading the change, get very clear, crystal clear mentally and emotionally so that they can deliver on that change successfully. And that's what I love to work in, is creating that safe, separate place for leaders or for divorcees. I say it can be the CEO of your own divorce and your own new life.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I was thinking about this morning before we started chatting is, and people that are listening, I've talked about this numerous times before. My parents split up and divorced when I was a sophomore in college, and then I left my ex-husband with two babies, and my experience was completely different than a lot of my very close friends who are now going through the process now. And I was definitely on my own in the whole process. And you know what? For me, it was okay from an emotional intelligence standpoint. I probably with some of my favorite therapists that I've sat on couches with, I have always been open to figuring things out and working through trauma and pain and difficult situations. And it came from a place of, I believed the name of my podcast and my business, Mind Your Nest. Like, I just wanted just to keep everything to myself. I knew I didn't really need to ask for advice or ask for help. I would leave that to my sessions with my therapist or my dad, who was my person. And I've noticed over the years, and with my friends who are now going through the process, that, we're all different people, and the way that they've gone through their divorce process with other extenuating circumstances.
Yeah.
With being a cancer survivor, my best friend, and going through divorce at the exact same time. We were actually on the phone for 2 hours last night, and we just kind of were talking about our own different paths and how we got through it.
Yeah.
And there's no taking a Sunday drive around it. You really have to go through it.
The only way out is through.
Yeah. So can you describe to me when you were in corporate America, and that what events, whether they were personal and professional, led you to say, I feel a calling to do this?
Got it. Well, I left corporate America because I became a full-time fertility patient.
Wow.
And I was fortunate that my now ex-husband was able to carry the load and was happy to do so. And we were married 18 years, and we had a very traditional plan. I mean, it was always that I supported his business, really, and my plan was to be primarily a stay-at-home mom. And then, but I was going hard until they would be born, and it took 5 years. And I had to finally leave because I couldn't travel and such. You're on this, like, the timeline of the retrieval and all that. And we ended up using a surrogate mother.
Wow.
So, but when I did that, I went back to get my coaching degree during that time. Because I always have one foot in my professional career, and I'm always growing, even when I was in infertility or cancer or then divorce. I'm always fascinated with how can I help humans do better and be better and achieve peace and love. So I knew I loved working with the leaders during the corporate change. So when I left, I started my own work in-house at that point. And I started to actually help my now ex-husband with some of the HR and personal and cultural issues as his company grew, which was just a really fun opportunity to stay involved and keep learning and growing.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was awesome.
When did your cancer diagnosis come into play during this time?
So it took us 5 years to have the boys, and then my boys were maybe 9 months and almost not even 3, and that I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. Wow. And no signs before, no family history that we knew of. And it was actually my mom that saved my life. I went to my internist and said I was having some blood in the stool. And he said, well, you have 2 under 2, and although you had a surrogate, you're not sleeping and you're drinking a lot of coffee. Yep, I really was not taking care of myself. I was fully up all night and having a blast at it. So he thought it was a hemorrhoid. And my mom had come in town to watch my boys because I was going to be traveling. And I mentioned this appointment in passing, not out of fear, or not even in a moment, just in conversation. And she said she had a feeling right away. And she said, I had just read an article about, and what color was the blood? Oh, it was bright red. Okay, you're getting a colonoscopy. And I said, Mom, I'm not getting a colonoscopy. I'll go see a doctor. So, no, you are getting a colonoscopy before I leave town. So I looked up, I was at Northwestern at the time, and after calling maybe 10 different GI doctors, they all were saying, we'll see you in 3 months. We'll see you in... No one had appointments right away, and nobody was panicked. I was under 35, no family history. It had just started. Well, finally, a doctor says, oh, you can come in and I'll give you a sigmoidoscopy, which is they don't go as high, so you don't have to be put out. You can do it in the office. And he saw something. He scheduled a colonoscopy, and it was his last day of work before retirement. He was in his 80s. And he called me to tell me that I had cancer.
Oh, my gosh.
I thought perhaps, maybe I have Crohn's, being Jewish. I never in my wildest dreams.
That's so sad.
It was crazy.
Oh, my God. I can't even imagine what that conversation must have been like for him and then for you to experience that.
Yeah. I've actually recently submitted a memoir and a piece that I wrote, and it was, thank you for those tears of empathy.
Yeah, it's just, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, so I wrote and I read at the Norton Museum recently in West Palm a piece about when the phone rang. And I was at the park with the boys. So luckily for me, the University of Chicago was in my backyard.
Thank goodness.
And I have a doctor there, Dr. Sonia Kupfert, and she really held my hand through a very long process, and it required an initial surgery, which we removed the tumor, which was very small, so they came out thinking, it's a fluke. And then we learned that it had gone into 3 or 4 of the 20 lymph nodes that had been checked. So very quickly it went from being a little blip to no, I needed full-time 12 rounds of chemotherapy. And then after that...
I'm sorry, I have a question. When this happened and your mom was in town, your trip, did you cancel your trip while all this was going on?
No, none of this went on. So, I made the appointment. It was like, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Got it.
For sigmoidoscopy. It's like, Jewish mom, okay, I have to go do that. No, I was not worried at all. I had no fears of any. I was just appeasing her.
Yeah.
Something was feeling off because I had just seen the doctor about the blood, and then I had seen an eye doctor. I was wondering if my eyes, but the truth was it was so small it probably wasn't impacting me as of yet. And I really didn't get scared until the night before I got that phone call, even when he said, we're going to come back and have a colonoscopy. Even then, I wasn't really too scared until I started calling my friends who are doctors, and then they were starting to ask questions. So by the time he had called, I was on high alert just from having some educated conversations.
Yeah.
And so then I had 12 rounds of chemo, and the chemo literally almost killed me. The chemo was the worst part of my entire health journey, for sure. And it really kept me home. I was pretty much home for 10 months.
Wow.
And the first one I ended up in the ER room, and it just, when you mess with the gut, chemo is hard no matter what organ. Chemo is just, they kill all the good and the bad. And so I welcomed it, and I was gracious that I could receive the chemo, but it definitely made me so ill. And then after that, a few years later, I went to Sloan Kettering in New York, and I had preventative surgery. So I had a total hysterectomy and not all, some of my colon and appendix removed.
So you were all into, this is what happened, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure I have a long, fruitful life.
That's it,
Yeah. How were your boys during this time?
Well, they were babies when I was 6, so that was good. That was good because being homebound with little ones was okay.
Yeah,
they
were so happy.
Yeah, we were all playing in the basement all the time and laying and such, but luckily I had a lot of care because there were times I couldn't even do that. And I was lucky that I had and could afford a live-in nanny.
Yeah. How was your mom during this time?
I'm not sure my parents have ever really come back from that experience. It was really traumatic. But my dad was still working full-time, so he was back and forth. He was in Michigan a lot working. My mom was in a lot, and having the live-in nanny was great because I had 2 under 2, but my mom had to care for me too. So
Right.
it was really hard. I just remember being in a lot of rooms looking up and just seeing her there in these little hospital rooms and such. But now I know how lucky I was to have them.
Yeah.
So
Very.
many people are alone.
Yep. Oh, it's so sad even thinking about it for individuals that are either estranged from their family, don't have those relationships. Something happened along their way that people have either dropped off, or the individual going through a difficult time has decided maybe not everybody is worth coming along for their ride in life. And that is sad when people don't have anybody there, just one person to support and love and, be able to just have two good ears and sit and listen to all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure probably like subconsciously that helped a lot, having that support.
Yeah, for sure.
So during this time, then what started going on with you that you had these experiences and then you're like, all right, someone's trying to tell me something, or I'm ready to really pivot and redirect what I want to do, what my passion is, what's important to me professionally. How did that come about?
Yeah, I think it's when you go through these life experiences, specifically cancer, you realize very quickly that every day is a gift and it's what I do with it. And I also became very clear that about legacy and what do we want to leave behind and how do we want to impact the world and be remembered. So I want to be authentic in my days, in my work, in my relationships. I strive that it's all the same human that you're going to get wherever you meet me. And that my goal, it's not just professional and it's not just financially, but my intention and my dream is to help other women through the tough times, to know that you are not alone, and to be able to be there in some form to help put your feet on the ground, to know that there will be tomorrow, and how do we brace ourselves and move through these challenges with grace and strength. And that's why I love the possibilities with virtual. Now I'm able to coach women around the country, and I'm able to do groups and bring communities together.
Yep.
And so while I still love the one-on-one in person, it does offer people to feel less alone.
I would agree with that. You and I have talked about this before, and you can't replace the in-person conversation where you're really seeing in real time the physical reaction, the intonation, all those things. I do agree that those years did open up the opportunity to continue discussions from, for me at least, it was like more well-established relationships where I could see switching from in-person to looking at you on a computer.
Yeah.
For some people, that's really challenging, but I think it's fantastic that you were able to use that as a positive expansion and reach for helping other women. Have you always wanted to help other women going through this process? For some reason, I feel like we talk about women when they're going through a health crisis, a divorce, any type of really traumatic situation, and them really, for some people, really needing a hand, really needing maybe two hands to help them through. And I know that this isn't just a women-only situation. There are plenty of men that go through the same types of issues that you have gone through and need help as well in a different way, those who want it. Obviously, there are a lot of men, I know a few very close to my heart, that sometimes like they're missing that emotional intelligence to allow them to open up to speak freely. I find it like, do you think that men typically just keep all that inside?
No, I'm meeting a whole new type of man these days who are more evolved. And I do think the next leadership today requires evolved humans, male or female. So I've been very surprised by men lately that they are showing up and evolving. And I've met recently 2 different coaches like myself who coach men through divorce. So,
Really?
and
like
I'm
that.
raising 2 boys, so I'm hoping that it's evolving. But I do think that getting over the divorce, I believe it does take women longer.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially for a couple of my dear friends.
I think breakups in general, maybe. I mean, I hate to generalize,
Yeah,
but
I don't know. But, with a couple of people that I know, it's definitely they're hanging on because they're just not ready. They just don't want to drop that hand in what their life was like all those years. Okay, so I definitely had a question. I have experienced talking openly in groups. I would say that my experience being part of the recovery community because of my ex-husband over 25 years ago, for me, it was very helpful to go around the room, to share, some people didn't want to share. They just wanted to sit and listen. They wanted to take it all in. Sharing and expressing, and it really opening up yourself to tell your story, share a couple of things is in itself a traumatic event for a lot of people. They just don't want to. Or once they start talking, like the tears are rolling for hours. So I learned a lot from listening to other people's stories.
yeah.
And it was helpful because it reaffirmed that not everybody's story is the same. We didn't all get here the same way. The addict in our life or what precipitated that behavior, for a lot of people, is rooted in mental illness, bipolar disorder, a host of other things. But it got to a point where I didn't find those group settings that I was benefiting from them anymore. And now I don't believe that you put something in and that you put something in because you want to get something back. I mean, some people do that. It's a transactional thing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm only going to give you this if you give it back to me in spades. So I wondered, when you have these group sessions with your divorced women, number one, how many people are there? Do you have a max capacity? And when did you decide that you wanted to create a communal space for women to start talking openly about their experiences with going through the divorce process?
Yeah, I love it. For me, when I was getting divorced, we separated right before COVID, and he moved back in per my request in March when everything was so locked down, and I didn't want the kids having germs outside, and so we all went through COVID together. And I used to talk to my therapist from the closet.
Oh my God.
And she had 3 other women around my age who were getting divorced, were homeschooling, were locked in the home, and she started a group for us.
Really?
So we would talk, and all of us some would hide in a car. I mean, when you were in COVID in the winter, in the cold, it was really locked down. People don't understand. So it was the most helpful experience for me, particularly because I was locked in the home.
Yeah.
And I didn't have family nearby. So I was very isolated. And we were all going through very different experiences. But just having that weekly call and knowing that they too were going through the same experience, it was very enlightening. And I felt that it allowed me to heal very quickly. I think that community creates that.
Yeah.
And I don't do groups, so it's like a trauma party. We're not there to belittle or to put down. I'm really focused on the rebuilding and letting go in a healthy manner. And the way we let go is we recreate something new.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. I mean, I believe in letting go and moving on, and I believe in forgiveness, and I know that forgiveness is never about the person you're forgiving. It's for you to free
Yes.
yourself, to unload, to make a decision, a conscious decision to say, this is in the past. I'm ready to forgive so that I can really have both feet in the present. And then I'll be able to refocus my eyes and feel like I have potential for a wonderful life in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's hard. Do you find that some of your clients get stuck in a certain stage of that process?
Yeah. I mean, I have clients in all different stages. I have a group of women that I'm working with who are trying to find the words to share with their ex and share with the family and to actually file.
Oh, wow.
I have a community of women. And I mean, there's one client we've been talking for years. And then I have another community of women who are so ready, already in the new journey. So we're working on their resume, we're working on their dating app, we're working on how they're going to be at the upcoming birthday party that they're co-parenting with their ex. Like, they're in it and they're moved on. And then there's people in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And that, when you're in the thick of it, has a lot to do with all the members of the team and collecting all the information
Oh,
and
for sure.
learning from your village.
Do you find that some of your clients are like have a detachment to the people in their team and they're going through the legal motions of the process of divorce, but emotionally they might not be in it? They're still 10 years prior to when everybody was quote unquote living under one roof as in a happy family?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because people talk about being in the fight or the flight mode,
Yeah.
but a lot of my clients are in the fawn mode.
And what does that mean?
Which is they're in bed, they're lethargic, they don't have energy. It's like instead of fighting or running, you break down. And that's truly what happened to me. And it was the divorce was mutual. There was no bad traumatic experience. It was a conscious decision that we were no longer making each other feel the way we wanted. And I really lost a lot of my drive and my energy, and because I was mourning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that it's so important to be, and again, people are only ready when they're ready, to really be brutally honest with your feelings and how your body and your mind are reacting to the situation. I would say that when I left, having 2 babies and working full time, I just like adrenaline and me knowing that who's going to take care of my kids.
Yeah, you didn't have the
didn't
space to do what I did.
I really didn't. And it was at a time where nobody was divorced. When my parents split up, they're like, wait a minute, Jane, Judy Heckman are getting divorced? We should all be worried if they're going down.
Well, they lasted a long time.
Yeah, and 25 years. And I would joke and say, oh, well, at least we're off the hook from throwing a 25th anniversary party. Yeah. And it was a shock. A lot of people, rightfully so, looked at our family, and I've said this before and could never imagine. But for me personally, and my mother had always had and still has had what do you call the thing when you're jumping out of a window and you're landing, you have a safe landing spot?
Oh,
yeah. So,
safety net?
yeah, thank you. So her experience was much different than mine, obviously. And for me, I did what I did because I asked my dad one question. I just asked, how do you know if you're happy? And I knew what I needed to do for myself and my children. And I just kind of started going and moving forward and knowing that there was no other alternative. And maybe because for some people, they come across as, I don't need help, I'm good, I'm dealing with this my own way. That could be potentially put off from people that, oh, well, she must be fine because she's not cracking whenever we see her. And I would say, and the reason why I've come to this realization is because seeing my two girlfriends and other people going through the divorce process so many years later than I have, I'm like, God, there's so many people around them. There's so many phone calls. There's so much. Oh my God. And I just think that I'm a different person that need or not needing that. And sometimes I feel like maybe my like standing straight and I got this, everything's fine, was like a tiny little bit of a detriment in a way because I felt so isolated for so many years. Like I was the plague. Nobody had split up, whether they had toddlers or high schoolers or middle schoolers or whatever. But in my age group and my friends, I was like the first one.
Yeah.
So I felt like that I was repelled. I was being repelled by other people and put in a corner and, oh my God, we might catch something. And there were no invitations to come along.
Yeah. But that's not uncommon at all. I mean,
I saw that with my parents and it was very different. And it was maybe because of the time, their age and everything like that. So how is it different now? Or is it different, that process, that the socialization or lack thereof? Do you hear from your clients that it runs the gamut?
Piece. I mean, a divorce still, it impacts your social life.
Yeah.
And it happens, I mean, it's just the way it goes. And unfortunately, I experienced it, and I never thought I would. I thought my girlfriends would still invite me on Saturday night dinner. And I was like, I still want to get dressed up and go have a nice drink, even though I'm not a wife. But the invitations are few and far between. And it's just the way society is. It's on a couple's night, they go with another couple. So the truth is it's about finding who do you want to spend your time with and creating your own community, because it is going to change. It is going to evolve. So finding places that bring you joy and light, ideally connecting with other women who are also single or divorcee in some aspect will certainly help. And then getting active in new places that bring you light. So new hobbies or doubling down on your career or your hobby and finding new places to meet new people, because there is going to be a change.
Yeah. I think that's so important what you just said. For me, I felt my work, my career was my salvation. And in a way, that's probably why I just kept moving forward.
Yeah.
And I wasn't as like emotionally distraught by the lack of reaching out or embracing.
Yeah,
from people that
it sounds
you would
like
really
your daily routine continued.
Yeah,
And you went back to that space.
Yeah.
And you had community there.
Yeah. And I, like you said, like I created my own.
Yeah.
In whatever way possible. Do you think the clients that you have now, that they're wherever they are in the process, does it differ based on how old their children are, who wanted out of the marriage, were there extenuating circumstances? For example, a spouse stepping out on the other spouse, addiction, and obviously a lot of other events and choices that are the reason why somebody decided, you know what, this isn't working for me anymore and I'm ready.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's every family unit is different. Every divorce is different. And they're all different pieces of the puzzle. And so certainly if there's abandonment issues, if there was an affair, certainly if the affair turns into a long-standing relationship and they're interjected into your children and such, those are deeper levels of pain that one may feel. But all divorces are difficult.
Yeah, I think so too.
They all wear different faces. And those that look as if it's conscious uncoupling and they're this beautiful new modern family, I would just say nobody knows what goes on in anyone's home.
Yeah.
And there are all different aspects to the pain of it. But the truth is 50% or more of our families are going to end in two homes. So to stop having shame or blame, but understanding it takes a lot for a relationship to last an entire lifetime. We
Yeah.
change and we evolve so much. So I'm really part of this new conversation, which is how do we use that experience to now learn from it, grow from it, create a new life that is based out of the knowledge that we learned about ourselves too. So having capacity to look back at that relationship that didn't work to learn about yourself.
Yep.
And what role did you play in it? And what did you allow that doesn't fit with your internal self? What culture, what home were you creating that did not align with you? And so let's learn from it. So as we create this next chapter, we are more in touch with our inner selves and we're more at peace and we're in flow with the universe.
I love that. And to be honest, I don't know if I shared this with you, but there are a lot of words that we've heard over the years as it relates to flowing and being open and consciousness, and I don't even know other words, but that different words were used back then to describe how you're describing the process and getting through it and coming out on the other side as successfully as you possibly can. Do you find that some of your clients don't want to do that kind of work? Because it's really hard. A lot of people that go through life, we always have a mirror in our hand. And I really believe this to be true, that always have the mirror facing outside because it's so much easier to point and pick apart and judge and all those things. Because a lot of people are incapable of turning that mirror like honestly and authentically on themselves and say, what do you want? And even if the answer is no, at least you're starting that conversation with yourself, whether you say it out loud in your house by yourself or you just look at yourself or you write it down. Do you think that sometimes, depending on their circumstance, that some women just don't know?
Yeah, or want to know for sure.
And how do you help them with that if they give you either one of those answers?
I mean, I've spoken to countless women because I do offer complimentary sessions, and a lot of people don't choose to hire me.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to find the time or make the money. These are the excuses, but the truth is to do the work. And there's study after study that show that humans will pick what is comfortable over what may be best for them, because it's a tendency. So, and sometimes it takes years too.
The path of least resistance.
Yeah, life is hard.
It is.
And the truth is not everybody in this life, in this time, is here to evolve to their fullest. Perhaps everybody is beautiful as they are today.
Yeah.
We're perfect and complete today. And some people are not meant, perhaps, to live independently, or they'll choose not to. And there's no wrong or right. It's everyone has their own life and their own options.
Yep.
I do have some clients who say years later, I guess I'm not going to pull the trigger. We're going to stay together. And I say, that's so beautiful. Let's work how to make that work for you, because living together as a family is beautiful.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So if we can make it work, and if you're not going to pull the trigger, then stop the shaming and blaming, and let's talk about how do you live in a place of love.
Yeah, and peace and serenity.
Right,
really,
and acceptance.
Yeah, that can be really hard for a lot of people, the acceptance part.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're giving in.
Yeah.
And you're saying you accept it, but deep down you really don't. I think that's another one of those words that is a liberation, the accepting.
Yes. Agreed.
Just like forgiveness. You're accepting. You can relax your shoulders.
Yes.
And you're not hurting anybody. You're not admitting to anything. You're not taking the easy way out. You've just, hopefully, depending on who it is, done the work to finally say, I'm done. I'm ready. I have a life. I'd like to start living it as soon as possible. When a prospective client first contacts you, when you have your initial conversation, what are some of the questions that you ask, and how do you get a read on whether or not this person would be a good fit for you?
Typically, my questions are, what brought you here today? What would success look like after working with me? And so very quickly, I can have them identify where's their needs. As a coach versus a therapist, I'm holding them accountable to live into their best life. I'm not necessarily going to be healing childhood wounds and such. I go there and I can do that. I've been trained in rapid resolution therapy, which I employ, I love, and I think it is tremendous, which is we don't sit in the old stories for too long.
Right.
But to understand where our self-limiting beliefs are and to take on a new thought pattern. And so I'll simply ask, what is not working today that we can work on? Where do you want to find more peace? Where are you at a lower number? Well, oftentimes as a life coach, we have a circle, a wheel, and it's your finance and your health and all the buckets of your life, your relationship, your family, and then you'll rate it, and 10 being the highest. And so what is at a low, what's at a 1 or a 2, and how can I help you get there? And if we're in divorce, in the middle of that, it's oftentimes that we are dealing with things like moving or selling a home or telling children, dealing with the actual physical breakup of a family, getting new bank accounts. I mean, very tactical things as well.
Yeah. And the transactional part of divorce, which is necessary. And sometimes that can be the variable that throws somebody over the edge.
Yeah, I mean, most people, when you're breaking into 2 homes, you're going to feel that financially, regardless of where you sit on the continuum.
Yeah.
And talking about finances and changing your status quo is extremely emotionally connected. So it's oftentimes a big trigger.
Yeah.
And having to change a lifestyle in any aspect or becoming responsible for future liabilities and such, it's a new way of being for many.
Yeah. One of my girlfriends is, her divorce has been going on for a very long time, and the house is ready to close. They sold their house in the next couple of weeks, and there's been ongoing struggle with that shift.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, very.
It's like symbolic of the end of the dream of this family.
Yeah.
The white picket fence with the home or whatever dream you had. When you break down the family, you have to mourn the loss of that union.
Absolutely. I mean, I didn't get married to get divorced.
No one does.
My desire was different for me, my wanting and all of those things. I don't believe in having any regrets. I'm definitely like my father in that regard. And we have 2 beautiful, amazing children that we're so proud of. Something that I read, and you just brought it up, that I'd like us to talk about before we wrap up, is childhood trauma and how childhood trauma really either sometimes leads us on our life's journey and how sometimes it can be the detriment to how we choose to live our life. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you help your clients? I know I'm not saying the term correctly from what I read in your bio, but accessing that part of us, because who we are as young people definitely impacts who we are as older, thriving adults.
Absolutely. I mean, and everyone in the mental well-being space acknowledges the impact, specifically up until about the age of 8, though, that those impacts will tell you what the world looks like, which glasses you're going to wear. So a shakeup like a divorce is when you may realize that those weren't glasses perhaps that you put on, or that at least those are just one image in the matrix. So oftentimes we get really peaceful and still, and then we will talk about what is that one memory or that experience or that childhood lesson that's coming up for you today. And we accept it and acknowledge it and then we recreate a new thought pattern that will serve us. A lot of times, if you're getting out of a long-standing marriage, it's living alone or being single is going to bring back some childhood wounds, because if you've been in a marriage for a long time, you haven't stood in a space alone.
Right. Even if you were alone in your marriage, you at least were, quote unquote, not alone physically, because you had
Exactly.
somebody in a picture standing next to you that,
Yeah.
as you described, showed yourself in the world, whatever,
Yeah.
the picture that you want people to see about what your home life is really like.
And the truth is, so many of my clients and so many people at the end of a marriage are coming out of toxic relationships because there was a breakdown of some sort, right? So there's going to be some perhaps negative self-talk that we want to work through, some feelings of perhaps inadequacy or viewing the divorce as a failure, or if perhaps they were in a verbally abusive relationship at the end there as you're separating, it's important that we clear out those negative thoughts and words.
My last question, to piggyback on what you just said, so many women are silent that are the victims of abuse, whether it's physical abuse, emotional abuse of anything. Do you find your clients that have had that experience have a tougher time with, once from the first session when you start working with them, to moving through and just continuing to focus on what work they know that they need to do but are afraid and have no idea what that would look like? I know that people stay in abusive relationships for a lot of reasons. For me, I couldn't imagine, but I'm grateful that I've never been the victim of that, whether it's meeting other people that have been the victim of abuse in a marriage, hearing their stories and feeling complete empathy and sympathy and warmth towards them. They obviously need somebody to care and listen and love them. Do you find sometimes that those clients are more challenged getting through that process?
Yeah, I mean, abuse has impacts. It's the way it is 100%. So if someone at the end of the marriage is getting out, or during the divorce is dealing with verbal, physical, or financial abuse, 100% it makes everything harder. The recovery is a lot harder. And if you have a client who's decided to end the marriage and they're in a good headspace, they're for sure going to be moving a lot quicker than someone who's being dragged through the mud in some way or shape as they're going through this process.
When your groups are together, do you try to bring individuals who are going through the process that are at like the same level with or without abuse? Would you try to coordinate groups of like situational women so that they could relate to each other a little bit easier together while going through this process? Or do you find that it doesn't really matter what your experience was, you're here and you're going to learn regardless? Whether the people that have been victims of abuse are learning something from people that haven't.
Yeah, no, I typically have separated my groups more by what phase they're at in the process versus the nature of the relationship. I think there's learning for everyone. So the one client I have in mind that was really being abused, so she wasn't up for any group work at all. So I can't speak to physical abuse, but women who, a lot of my clients that have had different types of financial or verbal or mental, no, I wouldn't separate them. Again, it's more around the phase that they're at. But in truth, I feel there's power in people coming together, I'm learning now, that are in different phases and have different experiences, because then we really do learn something new and a new perspective. And there can be a problem when groups get together and start trying to compare perhaps their maintenance or what they receive, because then we have a problem. They're all so individual.
I love that you said that in closing. I have found, and most likely it's because that I've always worked and I've always been with like non-North Shore people. This isn't a mark on the North Shore specifically. I'm just saying demographically
Yeah.
with our experiences sometimes, and maybe because of my experience, I've always been with different people that come from different demographics, from single families, from like everything. And my childhood, my growing up, I'm grateful for that foundation because it's definitely helped me. But that's not the only thing that helped me. The other part that has helped me tremendously are my fellow coworkers and the business environments that I've been in, because they are so different from how I grew up. And it seems like a little bit more relatable, like real. There's no fluff.
I think you're lucky that you had all that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I still think today, moving to Florida, there's so many people from so many different parts of the world and the country and the United States that bring such a unique perspective to what their life has been like, good, bad, or indifferent, and how they have done the work and just gotten through. There's some amazing teachers out in the world.
Absolutely.
And you find them sometimes in the most surprising places. You just never know,
Yeah.
who you're going to start up a conversation with. And they wind up to be an amazing teacher for you.
Yes.
That you didn't know that you needed.
I know, and we're having so much fun in Boca discovering, right?
I know.
All these new people and new lessons. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. Hope, I adore you. I mean,
do
from the
as well.
second I saw you, I'm like, I need to know this person. And then I'm like, oh my God, you're a Chicagoan. Look at that. I'm grateful that we met.
I'm so excited for good times ahead as well. As
me too.
We grow personally and professionally.
Yeah. And to me, that is, for me, the most fulfilling way to live my life, to keep moving forward and growing.
Yeah, I know we were raised by similar dads. I can tell 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank God for dads.
Yeah, we're lucky.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Hope is an incredible resource. I encourage you, once the show drops, to reach out to her if you're in need, if you're interested, if you're curious about what services she offers. One of the things that I really connect with the most with Hope, and I think it's something that people have told me, is your soft-spokenness, your honesty, and your humility that are so important. So, anyways, thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great day, and don't forget to mind your nest.